Yo, yo, it's your boy AO, Lakers for Life Live. First episode. We're going to be doing more of these. If you're new to the community, how's it going? I'm looking forward to doing this throughout the season. It's been 2 weeks. We just saw a big win against Miami. No LeBron James today. No Aiton. He's out with some back spasms. But we had Luka back in action. Smart and the Lakers take care of business against the Miami Heat, 130 to 120. We can run down the box score real quick because it was a good game with a lot of good things which we're gonna go over. But from the Lakers end, Luka Doncic, 29 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists, 3 steals. I thought he looked really sharp defensively in that first half. Austin Reeves, 26 points, 4 rebounds, 11 assists. Big shout out to Jake Laravia, who is settling into his role very, very nicely, quickly becoming a fan favorite at crypto. He had 25 points, 8 rebounds, which I thought was huge, 3 assists, and 4 steals. So Jake Laravia, again, is that connector piece for the Lakers. And ever since that Wolves game where he kind of had his coming out party, he's really been embracing his role as a Laker and really getting quite comfortable. Started the season off timid, tried to get his footing, right? You could see it. But he's becoming a pivotal part to the rotation. I mean, to round it out, Jackson Hayes got the start again today because Aiton was out with back spasms, but he chipped in well. 15 points, 5 rebounds. 11 of those points came in the first quarter. We even saw a pick and pop 3, which is wild. I don't think we're going to see too many of those moving forward, so we'll enjoy that one. But great game from Hayes in that first half. I thought he was really active. And then Rui Hachimura, 15.6 rebounds, 3 for 5 from 3. Smart, 2 steals, 11 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. I thought he continues to do what he has to do on the defensive end, setting that tempo, and that defensive tone, which the team, desperately needs. But he's part of that Banshee unit. I think he's going to stick in the starting lineup. But on the Heat end, Jaquez, 31 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. And I'll remind you guys, we drafted JHS ahead of him. It still hurts me every time I see his box scores. Wiggins, 15 points, 9 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 for 6 from 3. Look, I think he can do well on this team still as that two-way wing that we need. But Pat Riley, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind if you think we're going to give you a first-round pick. But the Lakers commanded the game overall. They led from start to finish. There were some close encounters from Miami, who are a relentless team. They are a relentless team. They push the pace. They don't really have an offense right now with no Norman Powell and Hero. They just continue to go at you, and it's a Spoelstra team, so they're going to have defensive acumen and, not make anything easy. So I thought this was a big win, in the fact that the Lakers controlled the game from start to finish was huge. Miami went into that zone in the third quarter, which really stalled our offense, especially with Reeves and Luka going 5 for 25 from 3. I don't think we're going to see that too often. Despite that, still pulled out a win with 10, but that's what kind of got the game close in the third quarter. Austin had that dagger 3 at the end of the game, but this was a good win. It was a collective effort. I mean, I just read off the box score, right? Multiple players in double figures, 3 players scoring 20-plus points. That's huge, and that's what you need. And we don't have Braun right now. You don't have DeAndre Ayton. 2 other, LeBron is a 20-plus point game scorer, and Ayton will get you 15 and 10, right? So, still a depleted roster, no Gabe, but the Lakers are gutting out these wins. We're 5-2 on the year, 3rd in the West, I believe, with a big game against Portland coming up tomorrow. That's going to be a clapback game. That's going to be something we need to take. They again apply a lot of defensive pressure, full court. This time we'll have Luka and Reeves. Last time it was, Reeves getting all of the ball pressure from Tamani Kamara. Full court, Drew Holiday putting the pressure on, still looking great. So we'll see if we can get a win tomorrow on this back-to-back. But it's been a very weird start to the year, some very exciting moments. We've been injury depleted, but the Lakers are gutting out these wins. 5-2. I want to start my first 10 when I looked at the schedule and we saw LeBron not being able to go to start the year. I said if we could go 6-4, if everyone is healthy, despite LeBron, I think that would be a fantastic start to the season. Luka went out 3 games. We went 2-1 in that stretch, and we're 5-2. 3 games left. We got Portland, San Antonio coming up. We very well can hit that 6-4 floor, which is a 650 win pace basketball team. Without LeBron James. I think that's a huge statement. And if this is our kind of ethos, gutting out wins, being able to score, but having to have a collective effort on the defensive end, then that's what we're going to do. That's what we have to do, right? LeBron is going to shore up that 4 spot when he gets back, but it's going to take a collective effort. And when you have players like Marcus Smart, you have players like Vando who could come in bursts and just give you energy. You have Jake Laravia, who, again, he's that connector piece, right? And when we talk about a connector piece, what does that really mean? It means in whatever lineup he's in, he's able to find alignment with the players he's playing with. He's kind of, I would say Marcus Smart is more that glue, but he has a complementary skill set to whatever lineup you put out there because of the game that he plays. He's less timid on the 3 now. You're seeing him pop. You're seeing him take them open shots, which is what we need. The defense is that's less gravity on Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic if Jake Laravia is hitting those threes. He's great from the paint, can finish well. We said that in the offseason when we signed him. He's a 3-point shooter, and he lives in the paint. Not really much of a mid-game. But on defense, he brings the intangibles. He's not the most athletic, right? But he understands his spots on the floor. He's great with defensive rotations, help side. He's leading the team right now in deflections based on, I'd say, a stat that I saw yesterday, leading the team in deflections, which is huge. Those are the little things that count. And those are winning plays that, allow you to stay competitive in games and go get W's, right? So having him on this roster has been fantastic. He's a big body. He can rebound. So, I wish we had a couple more on the team, but he is playing his role beautifully. He's continuing to ramp up. We still need a bigger sample size as far as him as a Laker, but he's picking up from where he left off in Sacramento, right? And I think he's a piece for the future for us. And he's a very, very important piece in the sense that we lost DFS, who's injured right now for Houston with that ankle injury. But I think he's bringing, he's just a heady player that makes those little winning plays. And, I would love to have added him to what we have today. But I think Jake Laravia is a great, replacement for what we were missing with that between Jake and Marcus Smart, right? So huge bonus. I think what we're getting from Jake is a little more than what I thought we were going to get early on. I didn't think we were going to get these scoring outputs like this. Obviously, it's going to normalize, but nonetheless, great play from him to start the season. He's building that chemistry with Luka, building that chemistry with Austin. They're already friends. And again, that complementary piece to that roster, you plug him in any lineup, he can complement these players. And there's alignment, which I think is huge. Marcus Smart, though, to me, he's missed a couple games to start, but he has been a needle mover for us. And I'm hoping, you knock on wood, hope he stays healthy for the majority of the games in the season, because his defense makes a very visible impact on the game. The energy. I don't even care about the ticky-tack fouls he picks up. He is relentless. He continues to go at you. and he doesn't make anything easy. The amount of steals that are just so strong when he gets these steals, and the physical presence he puts on whoever he defends. We have him and Vando on this roster who can do that, which is, big in a sense. You want to have more players on a roster that can bring this defensive intensity. And I've been constantly saying, and Laker Nation has constantly been saying, and guys, if you're jumping in the stream, please leave your comments. Lakers for life. I'm going to get to them. I'll respond to them. We're building a community here, for the future. And this pod is for the fans, by the fans. So again, drop your comments in, any thoughts, we'll get to them. But again, we have Smart and we have Vando. Those are our banshees, I'd say, with Jake Laravia coming in the cut to be that connector. But that defensive intensity is something we need. I was surprised we didn't start Smart to begin the season. Gabe got that spot, which was, I thought, very interesting. I don't think he's going to leave the starting lineup. When LeBron comes back, LeBron's going to take that 4 spot. Rui's going to move to the bench. You have to have Smart in there for that defensive intensity. And he's been scoring. We saw him drop a couple threes today. He can get in the lane. He can playmate to a degree. We saw that alley-oop in the game, the previous game against the Wolves to DeAndre Ayton. He is a playmaker on the floor, and I think he has presence. So it's not like he's a Vando in the sense where you get that defensive burst and there's nothing happening on the offensive end. He keeps the defense honest, which is all you can ask for. When you have a lineup of Austin, Luka, Smart, LeBron eventually, and DeAndre Ayton, right? You want to keep the defense honest on him so that they don't crowd whatever lanes are being created by our trio and whatever pick and rolls we're doing with DeAndre Ayton. I just want him to stay healthy because I think he's a big part to this team and the early success we've been having. And until we can get another two-way player for Gabe Vincent and Maxi Kleber, right, I think, that he's going to be a big part of, whatever success we have to start the year, right? So big kudos to Marcus Smart. To recap too, Jared Vanderbilt, I think he's going to be someone that, is not going to be able to give you 20, 25 minutes a game. He comes in, he gives you those bursts. He brings some chaos. I think it's a lot more controlled this season. Last year, it was just sporadic and it was just so dysfunctional. It wasn't controlled chaos that we're used to seeing Vando create. But I think he's doing his thing. His offense is going to be his offense. I think for me, the ship has sailed. We see all the highlights in the offseason of his 3-ball going down, and that has been an air ball every time I think he shot a 3-point basket from the corner, right? Which is crazy because he shot 38% from 3 last year. I think that's a stat that's very underrated that a lot of people don't pick up on. Wild. Go look it up, basketballreference.com. But I think he's more controlled. He's finishing some plays. He's not going to take it to the hole and create a play. But if he can be that rebounder, we've seen some big rebounding games from him. And, he can bring that defensive intensity, steals, blocks, offensive rebound. That's all you can ask for from Vando for 15 minutes a game. I think that's all we need from him. That's all we need, especially from when LeBron comes back. Gabe, I'm not even going to get to. He's out for 3 to 4 weeks. I honestly really hope we can trade Gabe and Kleber, who haven't been on the roster. Kleber's kind of been a dead roster spot. We have a 15th roster spot that's open because we have no money. We need to turn that into some space to sign a vet min and a productive player. And that two-way player does not need to be a name. It does not need to be a big name. I know people have been talking about the Pelicans. They haven't had a hot start. They got Herb Jones. He's on a salary that is not bad at all. I think he could be a great player for us if he stays healthy. He's the exact archetype we need. Big, but we may not need those types of players. We just need someone that's literally plays a 3-and-D role. And I've been scouring rosters. I don't know who that player is yet. Outside of just the big names like the Wiggins, we heard some stuff about Matisse Thybulle. right? Aaron Naismith is someone that I would love on this roster, but very hard to get. Jaden McDaniels, right, would be absolutely a perfect fit for us, but I don't think we need to have that name brand right in that spot. I mean, you put Max Christie on this roster, big body, 6'5", 6'6", can hit the three and just be physical and defend and can finish. That's all you really need. Shout out to Max Christie, man. But it's going to be interesting to see how we work that by the trade deadline to supplement what we have today. But a great start. I mean, let's get into, if we're recapping, Rui, right? I think Rui's been a really interesting player, great spot up shooter. He's become a very reliable 3-point shooter on this roster. Doesn't rebound to my at the level to my liking, but I think that's just something I have to come to terms with. I just don't understand how a physically gifted player like Rui averages less than 5 rebounds a game. And I get Luka rebounds. Aiton's been a presence on the boards, Vando, but you're playing minutes. Get physical, which he doesn't do. In my opinion, like there's plays, there's glimpses, you'll see on the timeline, Rui made a great defensive play here, but when you look at it holistically, he's just doesn't bring that physical presence, right? And it's been years and years and years of us saying, maybe if he gets that added to his game, what can happen? He can take himself to the next level. He can be that guy on the wing that we need. At this point, if he can just be that reliable 3-point shooter, can run the baseline, he can hit the midi when it's there. And, he brings you some competence on the defensive end guarding the fours. I think that's the biggest difference here. He's not guarding threes like we were trying to get him to do last year when DFS wasn't guarding threes, right? It's just that's not his area of expertise at all when he's already a subpar defender. So it hasn't looked as bad, with him at the starting 4 spot. And I think, honestly, when LeBron comes back, him at that back up 4 spot is going to be okay. He hasn't necessarily been great off the bench, so that transition will be interesting. But until that time comes, I think he's been doing what he needs to do for us, to start the season. And then that's huge. As long as he's a threat and, again, open up those offensive lanes for Reeves and Luka to do their thing, that's all we need from Rui. We've had some crazy, crazy scoring outputs from Reeves, averaging above 30 points per game. Just, if you guys want to know a little about me, Austin Reeves has been my favorite player on the Lakers for some time now. I rock his jersey. I got that at Laker games when I go to crypto. He's just the development, his headiness, his competitiveness. It's just so awesome to watch and watching him grow into the player that he's become, and for the league to finally get put on notice has been awesome to see. And Kenny Smith saying Luka is on some Linsanity stuff is why I don't watch the inside the NBA anymore. That's just a stupid statement. What have you been watching for years? Like, the guy knows how to play basketball. His averages are something that's not even in the same conversation as Jeremy Lin. It's 2 different levels. So the league is getting put on notice. And I don't know, because maybe because he doesn't look like the prototypical like basketball player in the NBA. He's busting ass out there on the court. Your favorite player, he's dropping buckets on them, right? And the league is finally getting put on notice, and it's not just his scoring. I think what we're seeing in the beginning of this season is his playmaking has come such a long way, where it's not frenetic dribbling, it's dribbling with an objective, and he has motions that he runs. It might not be as multifaceted as Luka, but he's developed a great P&R relationship with DeAndre Ayton. I think DeAndre Ayton unlocked a different part of his game during that time Luka was out. Having that P&R partner to be a release valve for him takes pressure off of that defense that's getting thrown at him. And it's been a huge unlock to his game. I think the PNR, and we'll get into that with Luka, needs to improve with Ayton and himself. I think Luka's a better PNR partner with Hayes. It's just something about a lob threat that Luka's last resort is just so effective, right? But Austin, he's just picking up and just elevating from where he left off. And he's putting up all-star numbers. And if we continue to win, I think there's a very serious chance he can be considered. I mean, you put him against the elite shooting guards, he's right there from a statistical standpoint. And again, it'll normalize, as Luka's now, ramping up and continuing to play. But I will take 25, 5, and 7 any day of the week. In what world is not all-star numbers? Like in shooting, he's been having some rough games from three. I think that'll normalize throughout the season. I think he's just kind of figuring out, his spots, and a lot of defenses are blitzing him and putting pressure on him. But I never have a doubt that Austin can't recalibrate, right? And, adjust to what needs to be done, and that he bounces back. We'll see what happens later on in the season with the playoffs, but let's focus on the now. He's doing exactly what he needs to do. For those that say he needs to come off the bench, you need to stop those conversations. That's not happening. You're not benching a guy that's averaging 20 plus points, 5 rebounds, 7 plus assists. No. And if there's a day that comes where he is benched, that's the day we're going to trade him. Like, that's going to tell us that this duo between Luka and Austin isn't working. For right now, I can't say it's not working. We're all right. We're 5-2. They're figuring it out. Yes, there are defensive, drop-offs, between those two. But Austin, if he's not the primary defender on the floor, and again, we can make moves to the roster that allows for more defensive presence and athleticism across the other 3 spots on the roster, he'll be fine. He's a fine third defender. As long as he's not guarding the other team's best player and he can focus that time on someone else and focus on, being that secondary playmaker on the offensive side, that's all we need. That's all we need. But that Linsanity stuff, the stuff that, he needs to come off the bench, no, he's bona fide. He's doing his thing. He's building his chemistry with Luka. And with Smart now in the starting lineup, Ayton being at least a rebounding presence to finish plays, we're going to see his game continue to unlock and develop. Which brings us to Luka now, right? This dude had a bad game today. Shot like complete shit from 3. 29 points, triple-double. The game comes so easy to Luka Doncic. And those 40-point outbursts are they're a sight to see. I was in crypto for the first game against Minnesota, where he dropped that near 50-point, 50 burger on Minnesota. And the way he was carving up Jaden McDaniels was insane. It was insane. Like, Jaden had no chance. And Jaden McDaniels is one of the best defenders in the NBA. And Luka's it doesn't even faze him. They're blitzing him. He has, DeAndre there now versus Jackson Hayes. But he was getting through blitzes. He could shoot from 3 when he's on that burner, and he's that volume shooter, right? When it goes down, it goes down. When it doesn't, I think it's rare when it's that bad of a shooting game like we had tonight. But just the scoring emphasis in how emphatically he scores, I think is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. What's been a big surprise to me, and it's carried over from Eurobasket, is that he's been active on the defensive end. I thought today he was very active, especially in that first half. 3 steals, getting into plays, deflections. He's not going to be a stand-up defender like a Marcus Smart or POA, but if he gets his hands, he disrupts and gets those deflections, those steals, uses his 6'8" frame. That's all you can ask for. Again, that's a huge bonus on that end. But I think he's been active. I think he's been solid. The one thing, or the 2 things that I'll bring up with Luka that I would like to see ramp up and develop and improve throughout the season is I just don't feel like the connection's there just yet with DeAndre Ayton like it is for Austin Reeves. There's something about the role where Luka's so multifaceted in how he's thinking about a PNR and what his options are after that pick is set. From, you're talking about a guy that can throw cross court passes, which are dangerous, right? You're talking about a guy that can hit the three, that can get into the lane, draw contact, get fouled, or take it all the way to the rim. So his optionality after the PNR is very much multifaceted, right? Which I think is something that DeAndre has to recognize. And it's difficult to recognize on like, okay, what is Luka going to do? Am I just going to straight line to the basket and just be available? Do I pop, right? What area is he going to be in so I can get to my spot? It's not easy when you have a player of that caliber and trying to figure out how to read him. And I think once they can figure out those actions and those reads together and DeAndre gets more familiarity, it's going to be absolutely lethal. I think Austin has had a great connection rate with DeAndre because of those pocket passes. Austin doesn't need that lob threat like Luka does, right? And I've seen how Luka uses that lob and just throwing it up in the air. It's as a release valve. When optionality is not there, he kind of throws it up because he's drawing the defense. And you got a guy like Hayes that can like bring it down and do what he has to do and finish the play, right? That's why like guys like Gafford and Lively really worked with him in Dallas. But those pocket passes, I think, is going to take a little time for DeAndre to calibrate with Luka. Whereas Austin, you kind of he can pull up from middies. He can take it to the rim, but I think there's a lot more of that pocket pass connection to Ayton, where Ayton knows, hey, I don't need to go to the lane and be a lob threat. I can just position myself in an area where I can score. Austin will either get a bucket or get me a pocket pass, right? And it's been good. I mean, we'll continue to see that develop, and we'll see the offense get that much more streamlined and effective when that happens, which I think is big. There could be conversation on what happens when LeBron James come back. I'll preview what the debate is. Can LeBron James be a number 3 on this roster? Is he okay with Reeves having a higher scoring output than him? Can he acclimate to being off ball? Or is his usage going to go up and be that number 2? And is Austin going to, have to take that step back after playing, starting the season so well, right? So many questions. And we'll have another live on that. I'm not there with it's not going to work. I think there's a role change that can happen. I don't think there's going to be a situation where LeBron's not going to have this usage that he's used to having. It's going to be different. And it's just an adjustment. And I think when that time comes, we'll work it through. But those are 3 very, very, very smart players. And I cannot wait to see those 3 with an Ayton, with the Marcus Smart. And, we'll get into another live, but I'll just say this might be the most efficient. LeBron's already efficient. I think this is going to be more efficient from the scoring side for LeBron that we've ever seen in his career. I don't think those points per game is really going to be a drop-off. I think it'll normalize between the 3 throughout the season. I think it can be lethal. Again, we need one more two-way player. Who knows? I think they gave Gabe a week ago, 3 to 4 week timeline. He's just small. He's not the guy. Kleber is not going to be the guy. The dude ran down the court once, and I don't know what his injury is at this point, but dude is burnt. He's cooked. We got Adu in the cut. We'll see if he can get some minutes, right? We've had to break the glass play Bronny because of no Gabe, which I'm not a fan of. I don't think he's ready for that just yet, but I thought he did what he needed to do or played to his best ability today against Miami. That's all you can ask for. They have Davion Mitchell on that other side, so it's an okay matchup for him, defensively. He had a couple steals, got in the lane, had a great dunk from Austin Reeves on a lob. He's just not ready yet. He's always been a year 4 player to me. It just sucks that we don't have like a vet min or someone that can take that spot. And it's Bronny that has to play that role, right? In an ideal world, if our roster was constructed optimally, Adu, Thero, Dalton Connect, and Bronny James are your 13th, 14th, and 15th player on the roster, right? And we're bringing in a couple vet mins. Maybe we trade for a player that can round out that top 10, 11, 12, right? We need that 12 to be very playable players. That might be, unrealistic, but at least the 10. You need 10 that you can count on, that can play, in big games. They can, and you could throw them in, and it's not just a very big drop off from where we're at when we throw in Bronny, right? But I'm not even, to be honest, thinking of, we know what we need. We need that two-way player. And I'm not thinking about, I'm thinking about that, but I'm not necessarily focused on that just yet. I think there's something here with this Laker team. And I know it's early. People are going to be like, oh, you're a homer. Of course, you're going to think this. They're playing well. Let's see what happens when they lose. Look, there is something there. And while we don't have all of the defensive presence that we want, that collective effort is what's going to win us games. And offensively, there's something about that half-court pressure that Austin Reeves and Luka put on a defense. And we're seeing that. Even if it's ISO trade-offs, right? And that, that's kind of, we'll end with this, right? Is I've had to recalibrate my mind in terms of offense, right? Where you have like a team like the Golden State Warriors that move the ball, it's harmonious, getting passes, making the defense shift, and Curry's hitting a three, or Jimmy Butler's doing his thing, Kuminga from the corner. That's not us. And I know there's some, I'd say, what's the word I'm looking for? Heliocentric basketball, meaning one player just dominating the offensive end, isn't what we necessarily saw from like an Indiana in the finals. But there are plays when Shea in OKC, it's just, this is his time to do his thing. And it's very much Kobe-esque from what we saw in those days, right? Where he had players like Powell that can be a secondary, and when Kobe doesn't have that shot or the defense blitzes, he can throw that out and Powell can do his thing. Or having shooters around him, the Fishers, right? The Arizas, the Odoms, right? But it was Kobe, even within a triangle offense, he was ending up with the shot. It was going through him. And I think when we think about our offense now, and sometimes where the ball stagnates, and it does frustrate me, where I'm like, wow, we've had 3 or 4 plays in a row where we just haven't run in action, or just something seamless, right? It's just P&R, and that's it. Let's see what happens. I think that's what we have to recalibrate our mind to, right? Like, sure, can there be better off-ball presence from Austin, right? Perhaps. Can there be more off-ball movement? Yes, that's something we can work on. We need to get better. But I think the ratio of offensive, like organized offense, and it'd be interesting to see, like Cranges, if you don't follow him on X, he posts a lot of good, like, advanced stats. And it would be interesting to see our ratio of organized offense versus kind of this heliocentric offense between Austin and Luka, which is just solely based on a PNR or just ISO, what the ratio is now. Because I don't think we're going to get to a place where there's balanced organized offense between that ISO heliocentric basketball. PNR is something that is going to constantly get ran, and we're running it with Ayton, which I think is a huge difference from last year. And we have to calibrate our mind to Luka is elite, the best in the league at creating offense, whether it be for himself or for other players. And there's an archetype of players that do well around him. And we need to continue developing that roster construction for him, right? And it is going to be this heliocentric basketball because he's just that good. And when he's whatever he was from three today, 1 for 8, whatever it is, it's going to look bad in those times. But how many times have you sat there watching games where the three ball's going down in a burst? He knocks down 2 or 3, gets to the lane. Next thing you know, he has 14, 15 points in the quarter. There's very few players in the league that can do that on a consistent basis. And that's who we have. Kobe wasn't that playmaker that Luka is because he was just so deadly on the offensive end and demanded 3 defenders to come at him because he could literally score at any place on the floor. Luka has a different style of offense, but he can draw fouls, get to the free throw line, finish at the rim. He can go on a heater from 3, but he also has this ridiculous court vision that makes him just so hard to guard. And, people can compare it to that James Harden style of offense. And I'd say there are similarities. I mean, James Harden gets his team to the playoffs, right, with that style of basketball. But Luka is just that much more elite, that much better of a scorer, not just a pure, foul baiter, right? He has shot at high clips from 3. He scores in ridiculous bursts. And that heliocentric offense is not going to go away. But again, like I said, there is, I think, a little more fluidity and I think just more cohesion that we can find with Austin Reeves. I think he's still kind of figuring out how to play next to Luka, right? And being able to pivot. How hard is, it is pretty hard to pivot from, a main guy in secondary lineups, second unit lineups, right? Where Austin's just out there spelling Luka versus now switching when Luka's back on and they're on together, where he has to now play kind of off Luka. And what I think is the hardest part to this all is you can go ISO for ISO, but you hope that there's a little more of an off-ball presence from Luka, but you can catch him kind of hovering or kind of standing in a standstill, and not being like a threat. But are you expecting him to cut? Are you expecting him to slash? I don't think we're going to get any of that. I think it's going to be Austin Reeves maybe ISOing in a play with Braun. Defense is shifting and you swing to Luka, and now he gets a defense that's off balance, and now he gets to get into his action, right? And orchestrate in that way. So I think if there's that fluidity that we can bring in that cohesion to that backcourt, this is a backcourt for the future, and again, you have to construct the other 3 spots to build around them. They have to be athletic. They have to be defensive minded. You have to have players that can hit the 3. It's a long list, right? But that's what's going to have to happen for this to work. But there's maybe a slight concern for me right now, but I like what I'm seeing. Austin is still putting up numbers. He's not going to average, as much as I would love it, 30 plus points a game. But if he settles in around 25 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, that's a fantastic season. That's an elite season. That's an all-star season. And Luka's going to continue to do his thing, right? So we'll continue to see how this offense develops. 5-2 start, Laker Nation. That's all we can ask for right now. I think that's huge. But again, I know we didn't get any comments in the thread in the live today, but rock with me. Follow my content, at Lakers for Lifers on Instagram, Lakers for Lifers on YouTube. Like the video, subscribe, all that stuff all the influencers say, but I'm just a fan. I love Lakers basketball. I love engaging with individuals. Excuse me. And just talk Lakers basketball. Don't feel shy. Comment on my stuff. Comment on the live. I'm going to be bringing some guests, a lot of my buddies that are Laker fans. And again, this is for fans, by fans, and we're going to keep it authentic. We're going to keep it real. When we're going to have that, 2-game, 3-game losing streak maybe in the season, you're going to see my emotions go off. We're going to keep it authentic, but we're going to keep it real. But stay locked in with me. Again, subscribe. It's a growing channel. I'm new to all this. I love Lakers basketball, and I want to share that love with all of y'all that love Lakers basketball. Tap in. And again, like it or hate it, drop it, comment, and debate it. You're going to hear that from me. If you don't agree with my take, let's chop it up. Drop a comment. I'll talk about it. And, we don't have to agree. That's what makes this so awesome. Let's have discourse. And let's build this thing up the right way. We'll continue to bring analysis, and I'll keep giving you my perspective on how I'm thinking about it. And, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a pundit, but I just make sure to watch every game, read what's out there, what are topics, and I want to just be able to talk about it with y'all. So again, tap in with me, like, subscribe, comment. Lakers for life. Peace.